A surprise jump in revenue at Hewlett-Packard causes shares to rise over 7%. Brisk sales of enterprise computers outweighs a fall in PC sales. It's make or break for Alitalia today. Shareholders need to stump up €300 million to keep the airline in the skies. But the largest shareholder has already said no. Hello and a very warm welcome. You're with World Business Report. I'm Sally BUNDOCK. Also in the programme, we focus on the rising cost of living in Brazil, where even the price of a football ticket is now out of reach for many. But first of all, investors were braced for bad news from veteran computer firm Hewlett-Packard, but they got just the opposite. Shares in HP climbed by 7% in after-hours trading on Wall Street after the company said it saw a 2% rise in revenues thanks to a jump in server sales and the networking business. This countered the crumbling demand for personal computers, and the news has inspired cautious optimism as the 70-year-old company struggles to keep up with shifting consumer demand for smaller portable devices. From New York, Victoria Fritz reports.
Today's personal computing power is now in pockets and handbags across the world, and that's left the traditional PC in big trouble. And that matters to HP, because personal computing makes up around a third of all sales. It's stuck with a business that's largely in decline, and unrelenting pressure from the likes of Lenovo and Dell is squeezing margins in that already shrinking market. But could a turnaround for HP be taking hold? These latest figures are better than Wall Street expected. Sales of its services to businesses helped offset the falls in the home computer market. That sent shares rallying more than 7%. The company is counting on Meg Whitman, its third CEO in 3 years, to restore HP's dominance in the tech sector.
What we may see, and what we are starting to see under Meg Whitman, is a smaller, more focused HP, and maybe not all things to all people as they have been in the past. Now, one thing Whitman has certainly done is taken off the table, at least for now, the idea that they would spin out their PC business or divest any big pieces. She says HP is better as one piece, that this has advantages for suppliers and customers.
For now, building and selling PCs is still crucial to HP's effort to restore growth. The boss claims the plan will take 5 years, but that may be rather longer than some investors are prepared to wait. Victoria Fritz, BBC News, New York.
Now, time is running out for cash-strapped Italian airline Alitalia. Today is the deadline for shareholders to sign up to a €300 million investment plan, which it hopes will get the company back on track. But major shareholder Air France-KLM, which owns 25% of Alitalia, has refused to plea for cash. So far, it says the carrier cannot be saved unless it gets creditors to write off some of its €813 million worth of debt. Well, for more, I'm joined by Norman Gage, an airline analyst at New Generation, joining us from one of our studios in Scotland. Norman, good morning. So far, some investors in Italy and also some domestic banks there have pledged €240 million in this cash call. Do you think it will get the rest that it needs today?
I think so. You know, it's a very good airline, and it's got a sound business plan that it put in place before this call for cash to make the airline viable. So I think they'll get the money. So
tell us more about the plan then, because as I've said to you before, Norman, I've talked about the fact that Alitalia is on the brink of collapse for many years now. So why is this new plan that's being put forward now going to work?
I think it looks at the airline fleet and the rotation of the aircraft, and looks at the routes where they're good at and where they're picking up good revenue and concentrates on those, and looks to come out of the routes where they're not making money.
Where do you think the extra cash will come from today? Will it be Air France-KLM? Will there be a change of heart there?
No, I don't think so. My sort of take on it is that they're not a particularly cash-strapped airlines themselves to be able to dip into their back pocket. I think it has to come out of the Italian banks.
What about their argument that they have to see a huge amount of debt written off in order for this company to have a chance?
I think it's their get-out clause to try and move away from the restructuring, and to try and not put the money in, and without losing too much face.
In terms of the future for the company, I mean, you're saying it's got a good plan, it will hopefully get the money today. What about the issue, though, of redundancies and unions, will that not come to a head eventually for Alitalia in the future?
I think it will, because they do have a very large workforce, and if they are scaling down the routes, then they have to be careful of that. But I think the other side of it is that we have to give traveller confidence in terms of wanting to book with Alitalia, because if we keep talking them down and people stop booking with them, then it will become a downward spiral, and it doesn't matter how much money you pump in. If you're not putting people onto aeroplanes and flying them somewhere, then you're not an airline. So I think the travellers need to be reassured if they have booked with Alitalia or they need to book with Alitalia. Certainly in the UK market, you can take out airline failure protection insurance, so your money is covered. And if, again, you book through a travel agency, they will work with you to rebook you if it does happen. So I think there should be a degree of traveller confidence involved in this action as well.
All right, Norman Gage, appreciate your time once again, and I'm sure the two of us will talk Alitalia again in the future. We will keep you up to date. Now, excuse me, it's one of the highlights of the football calendar in Brazil, the Brazil Cup final, and millions will be crowding around television sets later today to watch. Many would rather be watching live at the stadium, but simply couldn't afford it. It's taken almost 3 years and cost $500 million to upgrade the Maracanã Stadium for next year's World Cup. Now, continuing our series on the money in your pocket, Julia Carneiro reports from Rio on the rising cost of living in Brazil, where even football's getting too expensive for ordinary people.
This is where Rio's football fans learn to cherish the sport from a young age. But the new Maracanã Stadium, entirely renovated for the World Cup, is expensive. Ticket prices for this week's Brazil Cup final started at over $100. For this Flamengo fan, it was just too much.
I'd like to bring my whole family here with me to watch the final, but there's no way I can afford to pay for everyone. So we came tonight for a less important match, but we'll have to watch the final on television.
Some improvements are being made for the World Cup and Olympics, but here in Rio, many people feel that this is bringing them more fame than fortune, especially when it comes to real estate prices.
Lídia Orphan grew up in Copacabana, but has been living in the Tabajaras favela for a year now. She pays $270 for a tiny studio here.
So this is my house.
Real estate prices in Rio have almost tripled since the city won the Olympic bid 6 years ago.
I had to move out because I had no money at all to do anything, to do anything else. I just started to work to pay my bills and to pay my house. And I just couldn't afford it. So I came to the favela so I could have more money to live my life, to have more quality of life.
But even here, rental prices are going up, with the pacification policy making Rio's favelas safer. After years of hyperinflation, Brazil has enjoyed a decade of stability. But prices of food and services are on the rise again. This restaurant specializes in the traditional feijoada, a stew made of black beans and meat. Beans are a staple food in Brazil, but its prices have gone up by 27% in a year. Brazilians now have better wages and more buying power, but the rising costs of living are swallowing up many of these gains. Julia Carneiro, BBC News, Rio de Janeiro.
I have to say, whenever we report on food in this programme, at this time in the morning, I do start to feel rather hungry. Breakfast is due. These are the markets in Asia. It's all very mixed. As you can see, we're falling in Japan yet again. We had news out of the States yesterday, which was surprisingly to the downside. Consumer confidence unexpectedly dropped this month. Of course, that will spook investors, and the exporters are having a tough time today on the fear that Americans won't be spending in a major way in the run-up to Christmas. I'll see you soon.